Sifu Rafael is the founder and host of Heroes Rising. He's hungry, driven, and bright. He's used his skills to develop a variety of multifaceted businesses in the martial arts and fitness industry. He's also a business and mental game coach and host of the Coaching Call podcast. Heroes Rising is proud to introduce you to our exceptional co-host, E.A. Csolkovits. EA created, designed, invented, formulated, and reformulated over 75 products in the health and wellness industry. He is the founder of Givers University, providing increased happiness, freedom, and greatness through personal, business, social, and family development. He is also a licensed commercial pilot.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Heroes Rising. I want to welcome everyone to Heroes Rising. I'm honored to be joined by these incredible powerhouses. My co-host, EA, is an exceptional human being, and he's the founder of Givers University. Ron is an extraordinary business coach, and Bryan, what can I say? Bryan is a powerhouse all by himself. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Exceptional.
Doing just fine, Rafael. Thank you.
Doing great, Rafael. Good to be on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the most important things for me is to bring these episodes to people. Now we're doing them live, which is truly, truly a phenomenal experience. And I was honored when EA said, yeah, I'll join you on this crazy venture of yours. So definitely, I'm super excited. Listen, I had the pleasure of having Ron as a guest on my show, The Coaching Call. Ron is a passionate leader. He helps businesses with leadership and management development. He is a top coach with 28 years. That's right, 28 years of leadership and management development. He's an expert facilitator. Ron believes in involving participants and clients in their learning, leading a higher engagement and quality. What I love about Ron is his willingness to help other people achieve more than they thought they could. Ron, I know you're going to talk about the 3 R's. We can't wait. Let's hear it, buddy.
Sure. And you know what, Rafael, one of the important things you just said about, I do believe so strongly in involving the audience. And, we were talking backstage a little bit. I'm going to involve you a little bit, all 3 of you a little bit, as we talk about the 3 R's. I'm also going to ask the audience to ponder some of the questions that I asked. So as we begin talking about the 3 R's, number 1, what are they? The 3 R's are relationships, results, and reputation. Before we start, let's just define each one of them real quickly. What are results? The results you produce at work, very simply. That's what I mean by results. Reputation. What do people think about you at work? What do people say about you when you're not around? And the final R, relationships. What are the relationships that you have with people, that you form with people at work? And my question for you, gentlemen, and I'd ask the audience to think about this as well. For you, what do you believe is the most important R relative to sustained business success?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you, EA.
You're welcome. Okay, Rafael, it's over to you. No, I'm just
This is why he's my co-host. He knows how to deliver. Totally.
All righty. I would say hands down relationships. And the reason I say that, and I'll quantify my answer. And also, by the way, it segues into which we won't yet, when I'll be chatting with everyone in a few minutes. But the reason that I think relationships are number 1 is because the relationships that we have in life will impact us in so many unspoken ways. They will impact our results in profound ways, and they will also impact our reputation in profound ways. There's some people you can be around that brighten up a room by leaving it. And, those are people that are just like weaned on a pickle. And no matter what you say or do, they don't have anything good to say about anyone. So my feelings from business and 40 years in business and interviewing over 1,000 millionaires, I would have to say genuinely, the order of those three for me, from my insights would be, which are very limited, my insights would be first, relationships, second, results, and third, reputation. Because I believe the reputation, from my perspective, will automatically craft itself based on the results of the first two.
Okay. Thank you, EA. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I have to I'm going to double down. We're in Vegas now. So when we think about even the way that we're doing this right now, it's through relationships, right?
That's right.
We didn't know each other, none of us, until I asked all of you to be on my show. And then I asked you to be on this show. But it's that relationship, that trust that we can start to build, and trust, my gosh, that is, to me, that's everything. It's the way we can develop going forward. So yeah, I double down. EA, great answer. And thank you for, being an amazing co-host again.
Yeah, Ron, I normally like to take a contrarian view, but I don't feel like I can, because I'm with EA and Rafael as well about relationships. I mean, I met Rafael yesterday. and we had this good connection. But I think back about my successes. It's about the relationships that I've had. Mm-hmm. Reputation and results are important, but I'd go with the rest of the group.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I have to say, you just stole every bit of thunder I had. and being dead serious, I am on board with exactly what you're saying. Just absolutely on board. One thing I'll add, though, Rafael, the one thing I found interesting as well is that, yeah, I mean, we were part of your show, and for me, that was an awful lot of fun. Interestingly, though, and equally as important, you also asked us to sign in early before we began this show. And even though we don't know each other real well, gentlemen, I'll tell you right now, that conversation we had relaxed me. It allowed me to get to know you a little bit better. And relationships are starting to form already. As opposed to sign in at 5 of 12. Okay, here we go. Ron, start with the 3 R's. I mean, could I have done that? Absolutely, I could have. It's a lot better and it's a lot easier when the relationships are there. There's no doubt in my mind. And I mean, just if you can think about it, gentlemen, and I know, I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir and still for the audience. If I focus the majority of my time and the majority of my efforts at work on results. Bryan, get this done. Bryan, I need this by 4 o'clock. EA, it doesn't matter to me that you have a board meeting at the hospital later. I need this. And, Rafael, so what that you're teaching, whatever. Get this done. Get this done. What kind of relationships am I going to have with people? I mean, just next to none. And I'll go down the other side as well. If I overly focus on relationships and just again, oh, Rafael, don't worry, you have to leave early again today because you're going on vacation, whatever. I mean, that's not the best example still. EA, your research was off a little bit. Don't worry, I covered for you in the meeting. I don't want anyone mad at me. What kind of results are we going to get? Not sustainable results. I mean, for me, I believe all 3 of them are critical and they feed off of each other. It's like the 3-legged bar stool. You've got to have all 3. And, it's funny because I asked you to pick one and I appreciate that you did. And in the sessions that I run, I will ask clients, please pick one. And we talk about this and they're like, Ron, you said to pick one and now you're saying all 3 are most important. You pick one. And gentlemen, truly, I am on board with you that it is relationships for me. Now, let's dig into this a little bit deeper if we can. When you think about what a good work relationship looks like, feels like, sounds like, Can you just talk to that for a couple of minutes? And again, for the audience, if they would please ponder that as well.
I'm going to divert that to Bryan.
Good job.
No, man, I know you've been learning from EA. I might, I could always say, well, EA, what do you think about that one? It's trust. You trust each other in kind of those, especially in those challenging times.
Yeah.
And that's a word that just comes to my mind.
Okay, so the trust needs to be there without a doubt. Yeah. What else?
I'd say empathy too. You got to understand where if you're asking someone, even you said if you're late or you have to leave early or this again,
Yes.
you have to find out what's going on with them, right?
Yes. And Rafael, there's a quote that comes from Dr. Daniel Goleman, one of the thought leaders from emotional intelligence. And he says very simply, I believe this to be true. Empathy represents the most important social skill to have at work. And the way I understand empathy, the way I think about empathy, the first piece of it is understanding others. And exactly what you're saying. What's the situation? What's happening? And I mean, I'm an avid reader. And one thing I learned about understanding others is very simply, how do I know I understand someone and I understand their perspective? I was reading this on a plane flying home from San Francisco with my wife, and the author said, you know you understand someone fully when you can tell their story.
Mm.
When you can tell their story, you understand, and now you're being empathetic. And when I read that, I was like, that's a keeper. Yep. That's coming with me into my classes and into my work.
Very cool.
No doubt. No doubt.
To answer your question, if I may, my mentor shared with me an interesting distinction. And he said, a lot of people confuse two words. One is sympathy and the other is empathy.
Yes.
And he said, and many times they use them in the wrong because they don't realize the definition. And he said, so let me give you a story, a quick little story in your mind that will always help you keep the distinction in your mind between sympathy and empathy. He said, picture you're driving on a bridge and you see someone getting ready to jump. He said, you run out, you stop your car, you slam on the brakes, you run over and talk to them, and you say, don't jump, don't jump, don't jump. And you talk with them for 10 or 15 minutes, and you talk them off the side, and then you go down the side, maybe have a cup of coffee with them, and you talk with them, and you really care, and you're participating with them. He said, if you're sympathetic, he said, you slam on the brakes of the car, you run over, you talk with them for 15 minutes, and then you both jump off the bridge. He said, that's the difference between the two. He said, so have empathy, be very cautious about your sympathy.
Right. That's right.
Love it.
Exactly right. And I mean, the other thing I'll add here too, I mean, I love the conversation about empathy. The other thing about good work relationships is, and again, at least for me, getting to know the whole person. It's not just about, I want to know you professionally. I do. I want to know your goals. I want to know your dreams. I need to know what your strengths are. I need to know what your limitations are. I also want to know about Bryan, the person. Bryan, what do you love to do? What are your passions outside of work? Tell me about your family, Bryan. And I mean, not digging into, tell me the most intimate details of your life, Bryan. No, of course not. Still in all, when we can be human, the relationships go that much deeper and we work that much more effectively together.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff, Ron.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 3 R's, right?
The 3 R's: results, reputation, relationships.
Yeah. And they all tie together, don't they?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, how Rafael can I possibly coach you, work with you, lead you, unless I know who you are as a person? And again, the better I know you, the more effectively I will work with you. And actually, you know what, gentlemen, there's one other thing that I would like to add, if you don't mind, and one last quick question. with whom do you think you need to? With whom do you think you need to have the best relationship?
Myself.
Right here.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. For me, absolutely. And I mean, I am, and please don't make fun of me. Uh, I'm a New York Giants season ticket holder. I have been for many, many years. We're at a tailgate one game. One of the
When are you inviting me? Hello, I'm in New York.
Rafael, if we have tickets available here and there, that'll happen. I promise.
Okay, good. See, connections, right?
We're at a tailgate. Peter, who is a CFO for a technology company, comes up to me. So, Mr. Leadership Development Man, throw me the one tip. Just throw me the one tip that would make me the best leader possible. I said, all right, Peter, you got to let me think about it for a couple minutes. And when I did answer him, that was my response. I was like, Peter, if you're going to limit me to one tip, it is get to know yourself extraordinarily well.
Mm.
Because the better you know yourself, the more effective you will be with other people. Get to know your strengths, get to know your limitations, be comfortable with both of those, and know what triggers you. And know just, all of these things. Know what's in that your family is critically important to you and that there needs to be balance and that you practice these things. When you know yourself the best, you will work more effectively with other people.
Yeah, beautifully said. Great tip also. Guys, I told you in the beginning, I'm in a virtual world with these amazing powerhouses. Let me tell you about someone who I've had the pleasure not only of having on my show, but he's also my co-host. He's not your run-of-the-mill coach or mentor. He is a mentor to me, and he continually guides me in all aspects of my businesses. I have many businesses. He's had rooms of 50 presidents of companies pay him $5,000 each every month to learn from him. That's $250,000 for 3 days of work. Three. So I did the math, because I wanted to know. He did this for 2 years. You know how much money he made in 2 years? $6 million. Okay, no big deal. Do you know how many days he did that for? 72 days, and he made $6 million. If you want to learn how to earn $1 million or more, EA is your man. And we will put his link up there, you guys. He's not doing this for long. He will have you if you want, and he'll guide you. And I think he's doing it like in 12 minutes, and then you can get a follow-up call with him. He's just an amazing person. He also is the first person who's ever developed a profit-scoring companies based on what his mentor taught him, his mentor, Sam. He also interviewed a million, I'm kidding, 1,000 millionaires. He'd still be interviewed. 1,000, though, 1,000 millionaires. And what he learned from it is, my gosh, so much knowledge. So I would highly recommend that you book time with EA. He's done it. He can teach you how to do it. And we will definitely put his link in the comments. EA, are you still willing to talk to people?
I certainly am. But as far as the coaching part and stuff, I've sort of, I've got other projects in the wind, if you will, some spectacular ones that are quite revolutionary happening in the next month or so. So that's been our primary focus. So I appreciate all those kind words. And I was listening to those nice things you were saying. And I said, well, none of those things are still as long as my last name. So I better get to work, because since till I was 12 years old, I thought my name was Go Chop Wood. So, what's the difference? But so I just, it's an opportunity certainly to be able to share with something. And I really appreciate what Ron was covering and mentioning, because a lot of that resonates with what my mentor taught me. And, it's funny because today, and think about it for a moment, don't we have businesses opening and closing faster than ever before in history? Where companies used to last, they were multi-generational. And now if you've been around 6 or 10 years, you're an old company already, you know. And you think about products being antiquated overnight by brand new products, faster than ever before in history. So when it's all done, what do we have left other than our relationships? And one of the things that we do, and that I'd like to be able to share with everyone that is so critical, is number one, how do we discern with those relationships? And it's one of the things that we teach at Givers University, and that is, in one word, discernment. I want to say to the listeners, we love everybody. And I say that again, we love everybody, but we teach people how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. Mm-hmm. And from that, we use the word discernment to help people discern. I was doing a podcast interview in the past, and this guy says, "Wow, I really love this Givers and Taker stuff, and this is all great stuff. And I read this book, and it said I should have 5 good people around me." And I said, "You're right, you should. One question: which 5?" And all of a sudden, he's staring back at me with this, little orphan Annie eyes, blank look. Then I said, "You see my point? Everyone's saying what to do, but they're not saying how to do it." And so we teach discernment, even by virtue of checklists. We have one that's called, it's the 25 deeds. In other words, these are the 25 things you watch people doing. It's a skill. It's a skill not being taught. These are the things you should be watching them do. And when you see them do certain things, these things from a literal checklist, you should think, all right, should I bring them closer into my life? Because givers bring with them the 3 W's, wisdom, wealth, and wellness. Or when I see them doing other things, should I begin to respectfully, not rude or nasty or insensitive, but should I begin respectfully distancing myself? Because if I bring them in closer, they're going to make me collateral damage. And I'm going to be stomping out fires not of my making. So I ask our listeners and our viewers, think about the fires you stomp out every day. Think about when your stress level skyrockets. They have something in common with each other. Do you know what that is? There's a name attached to them. And no one's teaching us how to discern in our relationships. Which ones? Not in a rude or nasty way, but not by listening to what they're saying. Because I've seen some people say, some really smart things. I've met probably thousands of educated idiots over the years. And I say educated idiots in a kind way because, they have all the book knowledge, they have all the schooling, thematically, they understand the information. But here's one thing, they've never done it. And you see, when you've done it, whatever it is, you bring with you automatically all the things that didn't work, all the things that Bryan has that didn't work, all the things that Ron has that didn't work, all the things that Rafael. And that's where the wisdom is, not in what worked. The wisdom is in what didn't work. And that's where we learn that wisdom and pick that up from. And I was very blessed to meet an amazing man who I speak of all the time as my mentor. And how he influenced my life, because I was son of a milkman, burnt out janitor when I met him. And he put those burnt out wires together and taught me how to condition my mind. And he used those words over and over again, condition your mind, condition it and watch what will happen for it. So along with those points. So I wanted to say, Ron, I totally resonate, and you resonate with things my mentor taught me on how important relationships are and how those things are all interconnected together. It's so critical. Yes. And so we like to teach people, how do you do that? Napoleon Hill did a marvelous job in his book, Think and Grow Rich. It was masterful, talking about what's called a mastermind group. Now, I've seen, I'm sure all of our panelists have here, our guest speakers, and I know Rafael, where people get together and they say, let's start a mastermind group. And they all get together, and like 2 or 3 months later, it just sort of dissipates. It just sort of goes by the wayside. It just sort of gets watered down, and they're not attending. And that always astonished me. And I was a point of curiosity for it. I thought, they got together for a good reason. They wanted to do some great things. They wanted to help each other. Why did it dissipate? Why did it sort of fall apart? There it is right there. Think and Grow Rich, right? And what an amazing book, for sure. And when Napoleon was talking about the mastermind principle and the concept of it, it was novel. This is back in the 50s. So, it was, but one of the things in his book he doesn't teach is How do you do it? He says what it is. He doesn't say how to do it. So we embarked on deciding, how do you do that? How do you form that mastermind group on steroids, if you will? How do you form that group, and how do you select those right people? So with that note, I'd like to share with everyone a few slides just for a couple of minutes. And those should be coming up. Man, that came up great. Thank you, StreamYard. That was pretty impressive. That was really fast. So I want to mention, first I'm going to mention a free resource that's for everyone, because we give this because we know it's the important thing to do. And that is, go to YouTube, next time in YouTube, and then simply type in Givers University, all one word, no spaces, Givers University. Look for a playlist, and the top playlist is How to Form Your Own Giver Community. It consists of over 22-minute clips. Each clip is 2 minutes in length, and it goes through step by step. What you're looking at right here on the screen is actually the first thumbnail of the first clip. I mean, what is a giver's community? In this 2-minute clip, we talk about what's the difference between a giver community and a taker community. How many of us have been invited? Come join our community. Be a part of our community. We're all of the same mind. And then you join, and within 6 hours later, they're trying to sell you everything under the sun. All right. That's not a giver community. That's a taker community. Right. So what we want to do is teach people, how do you discern a giver community, but then also, how do you build your own? So we use the term junto, Junto, and you can supplant that with the word community. The word actually is from the 1600s, Spanish word, wasn't used too much till Ben Franklin picked it up. And then he actually formed a group of 12 friends that met every Friday night. Originally, it was called the Mutual Improvement Club. Then it was called his Junto, and then later on it was called the Leather Apron Club. And he formed this group of 12 people that met every Friday for 2 hours. And this was a hand-picked selected group. He picked each person for a specific reason. What's interesting about this conversation and these conversations Ben Franklin had every Friday night for 2 hours is arguably our very Declaration of Independence can be traced back to those very conversations Ben Franklin had at his Junto. So no one can tell me relationships are not powerful. No one can tell me that the people we choose to have around us, or those we respectfully distancing, are also equally important. So look for this thumbnail, and then you're going to see to the right literally there are over 22-minute clips, step by step, how to form your own givers community, what to do. And then also towards the end, the last 4 or 5 are on the agenda. What do you do now that you have the group? What do you cover? What do you say and why? And why? What do you do during these meetings? So we, from beginning to end, at a very granular level, we go through how do you form your own givers community. It's absolutely free. We want people to do it because what could be more important, again, nod to Ron, than being selective with our relationships. So this is slide 1, this community. The first thing you want to do, by the way, the word discern, DISCERN, is an acronym that we use on the 7 critical steps in forming your own community. DISCERN. It's an acronym. The D stands for, the first thing you want to do is decide who do you want to have in your group. Right? Well, how do you do that? Right? Mm-hmm. It's the old, which 5, right? I mean, she looks like a good gal. He looks like a good guy. I mean, how do you decide which one? We actually have checklists of things to observe, observation skills, not being taught anywhere else. This is what you look for. Watch them doing these things, and you can actually go through with check marks and total at the bottom, and you already are 3/4 of the way on your way with whether it's someone you would want to have in your community or not. So the D stands for decide. How do you decide? Actually, by the way, this is another thumbnail in that playlist. There's a 2-minute clip in detail explaining how do you decide, right? Then the next is, as I get back to slide number 3 now, and that is the I is for invite. I don't know if I is on. I don't know if it's on the screen or not. Can you see it, Rafael? Is I on there?
No, it's off.
Oh, okay. Something I need to do. It says remove. Okay, there it is. Thank you. All right. So the I is for invitation. All right. How do you invite these people? Let's assume you want to have a group of a dozen people. How do you invite those dozen? What do you say? Right. So we have a clip on that. Right. The next one is S. S is really critical. Seed the group. How do you do that? The reason is you want to have something called expectational agreements up front with those people you want to have in your community. And these are agreements that we will all hold ourselves accountable to. These pre-existing expectational agreements, this is what we expect and we all agree, are critical parts of a really good community. Have everyone agree upfront before you accept them into your group and say, hey, if this doesn't work for you, God bless you, we love you, no problem, it's just not a good fit for you. These are the expectational agreements we all hold ourselves to with this group. Then they also know we're all treating this seriously. We're going to have fun and have a great time with it, but also we're viewing our relationships very importantly. Number 5, the C here is to convene, get together on a regular basis, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, just on a regular basis, get together, convene. The next one is, and that is what is in a name is E, discern E. The E is for establish, give it a name. Do you know Henry Ford had a junto? It was called the Four Vagabonds, and it consisted of Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone from Firestone Tires, Thomas Edison, the inventor, and John Burroughs, who was a poet, writer, also a federal bank examiner. So he must have been the money man. Anyway, so E is established. Give your junto or community, give it a name, because when you give it a name, you breathe life into it, and there's a camaraderie that these dozen people or 6 people or how many are in a group are now a part of this group that has a name and an identity. And number 7 is rotate. R, the last letter in discern is second last letter. R, every single meeting have a different person chairing the meeting, not the same person. Go around, constantly have a different person in the group chairing the meeting. R stands for rotate. N is for numbers. And that is to seed other juntos, not to take from them, but to give to them, and seed other communities that you can help, and you can help them grow and move forward. So all that's available at our website here, giversuniversity.com. Go to our YouTube. It's free. We walk our talk, and we like to be able to share with people this important information. I mean, it really is important that how do we have the right people around us? How do we make sure that we're selecting the right people? And then what's the methodology that we're going to use? There's methods, and at a very granular approach. So, Rafael, that's what I wanted to share with everyone as far as how do you form your own givers community and givers junto. I think that was a perfect fit on the tail end of what Ron had covered on the importance of relationship. Because here's how we build those right people, those right relationships around us.
Yes.
That as companies come and go, we still have that relationship. As products come and go, we still have that relationship. That's why they're so much more important. And as Ron said, find out more about the person, and by the way, cliches are cliches because they're usually true, but not always. And sometimes people, this one gets me. This one always gets me when people say, well, it's just business. Well, when they say that, I have one foot out the door. Because when they say that, what they really told me up front is they're getting ready to take advantage of me. It's not just business. I'm a person. I'm a human being. Right. And I have motivations, and I have things, and I have whys in my life that are important for me. And as we get to learn those, we're able to build and develop those great relationships that are business, social, and family. All just as important. So
can I ask you before you go on, how important is it for someone who is maybe just starting a small business, a big business, or is a junior executive, or even is just getting out of college and they're going into business? How important is it for them not only to create a Givers University, but even get to the know-how of creating a Givers community? So would you say going to your website, Givers University, would be very helpful to them?
Well, for sure. We have courses there. Our primary course, cornerstone, is called Give to Be Great. Consists of the giver's mindset, the giver's lifestyle, and the giver's lifelong learning. And the whole course set is called Give to Be Great. And I can share with you one real important point to that. And thank you for asking that, Rafael, is, first of all, if you don't have a mentor, get one. In my world, if you don't have a mentor, we have a word for that, and the word is naive. That's the word. And and make sure when you get a mentor, it's someone who's done it. Don't get an educated idiot, because you're going to pay for their education. Now, coaches are great. It's good to have a coach. They can teach you how to do Excel, and they can teach you how to do Word, and teach you how to do this on your website. Coaches are great. They're valuable. A mentor relationship is way different. It's much more confidential. It's much more intimate. It's much, this is a person that helps wire you to the way and to get to where you want to get, and find out what you want, the direction you want, and get a mentor who has done it.
Yeah.
So critical. So critical. And then they can guide you, because they can say, hey, don't do that, because here's what happened, and I still have a scar on my left leg from that. Here's why. I learned from that experience. Mentors can do that for you. Coaches are not able to. And I love coaches because, again, they teach us valuable insight. So hopefully that answered your question. And Rafael knows I never say anything in 10 minutes if I can say it in 20. He already knows that. So I just, so he when he asks me a question, it's dangerous territory. He knows that.
But you know what? I just love the answers that you come back with. So it's definitely worth it.
I appreciate that so much. And I'm looking forward to being able to introduce here Bryan Gillette. And Bryan is an amazing person, by the way. He's an executive coach, author, speaker, ultra distance endurance athlete. That is so interesting, and it's sort of when I was reading his bio, I was thinking, this guy, he teaches people epic performance. To find out what they want. And then how do you get to that level that was almost for some people unthinkable? And, and he helps. It was sort of like this one guy that ran out of gas on the highway, and he said, and he saw a farmhouse, and he thought, there's a long way for a gas station. maybe the farmhouse maybe they have a gas can. So he climbs a couple of fences and goes over to the house and gives them a $20 bill, and they let him, they had some gas there they were using for a vehicle. And so he was walking back, and he went over a couple of fences. And all of a sudden he heard this snorting, and he turned around, and he saw the meanest looking bull had his eyes fixed right on him. And not only that, he had a red gas can in his hand. So, and all of a sudden that bull took off after him, and it took off as fast as you can imagine. And he took off for the fence. And that guy he said, man, I got to get to that fence. And he knew he wasn't going to make it to the fence. And there was a tree right in front of the fence. So he jumped with all of his might with the gas can in his hand, and he missed the tree. But he caught it on the way down. And that was the thing that you want to make sure when you have a far off objective and you have something higher than you thought you could achieve. Bryan's the kind of guy that can do it. Who else can run, 205 miles and 8 marathons around Lake Tahoe? Bryan's done it. And with 90 minutes of sleep. With 90 minutes of sleep. He used to be an HR executive in Silicon Valley, and then from there started an executive coach, brought out his own book, Epic Performance, and he combines his experiences of how do you do what for some people in their own mind might be statically unthinkable. How do you push past that and do that thing that maybe was unthinkable? And Bryan is one of those that has done it. So that means he has the license that he carries with that says, I can show you how to do the things, because you can't do the kinds of performance and epic performance he's done without knowing how to do it. It's just that simple. Bryan, please share with our listeners some of your great, astounding information.
EA, thank you for that nice introduction. It's hard to be the last speaker because I got to follow all these, the other two good guys. So I think I should have negotiated to be the first person up. So thank you for the introduction. Back in March, I was reading a post that a friend of mine had put up, and he and his son had flown into Berlin and drove from Berlin. They first went to a bunch of pharmacies and bought a bunch of medical supplies, and then drove down to the border of Poland and Ukraine because they wanted to deliver medical supplies, but they also wanted to walk around, find some refugees that needed to be transported back to Berlin. And so they picked up some refugees, drove them back to Berlin, got them situated, and then went back, kind of repeated that again. And I'm always looking for an adventure that pushes me into the unknown. And I read this post and I sent it over to my wife, and secretly I was hoping that she would be on board as well. And so we started talking about it. And about 2 hours later, we decided, once we got our kids on board to do something like that we would do the same thing. And so we would go rent a van. We'd try to drive down to the border. We would deliver some medical supplies, and we could see how we could help this unfortunate situation that was going on in Ukraine. And this was back in March and early April. And we had so many people that were saying, we want to help. We just don't know how. And we didn't either. But when I saw this post, it's like this becomes that opportunity. And we started, and as we were talking about it, trying to figure out if we were going to do it. And we both looked at each other and we asked ourselves that question I have asked myself many times over the course of my life. And it's, will we regret it if we don't do this? Will we regret not going to the border of Poland and Ukraine, or going into Poland and trying to help out with this refugee situation? And as soon as we asked that question, we knew what the answer was. It's like, we've got to do something. And there are a bunch of things that went through our head, but two things that kind of instantly went through our head. And these are two things, and I write about this in the book because I interviewed 100 executives and other ultra distance athletes and found out what behaviors do they have that helps them get from a concept across the finish line. And two of the many concepts I learned is, one is, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one is, sometimes you just have to jump in and start figuring things out along the way, because you're not going to know it initially when you start something big. And if you go back to that, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I remember I was in my mid-30s and I wanted to travel around the world. I'd been working for a great company. And I had a very comfortable house, very comfortable lifestyle. I'd started dating this woman who I really liked, and it was a pretty easy life. And my company had just been acquired by another company, and I thought, things are going to change. Maybe now I should go travel around the world for 7 months. But it was uncomfortable because I was giving up that comfortable house. I was giving up that great job, that easy life. And I was going to be doing things that, as 20-year-olds, right out of college, you think you go travel and backpack through Southeast Asia. And I was going to be doing that, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And am I going to be able to do it? I don't have an income, and I'm constantly moving, and language and finding out where you're going to spend the night is different. And so I went back and I asked that question that I'd asked earlier, is, will I regret not doing it, in 20 or 30 years? And the answer again came really quickly. I figured, if it doesn't work out, I can always go home. I can always cancel and just fly home. And so I find, and these are the people that I talk to found the same thing, is we learn more when we get into that uncomfortable zone. We get out of that comfortable zone. You learn what you can do, but you also learn what you can't do. And more realistically, the important thing is you learn what you can do. I think about, my wife is a swimmer. And we often talk about swimming and the difference between swimming in the shallow end versus swimming in the deep end. In the shallow end, it's very comfortable. It's very easy. And you build up your confidence until you're ready to go into the deep end. In the shallow end, it is comfortable. In the deep end, it's more uncomfortable. But the water is fundamentally, to swim in the shallow end or the deep end, it's the same. In the deep end, we build up that resilience. But it's the same whether swimming in shallow or deep end, but except it's up here, it's more mental. Mm-hmm. So when we were deciding whether or not we go into Germany, into Poland, and kind of put ourselves into that uncomfortable zone, you didn't know the language, never been to Poland, didn't know how or what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. It was, where do we start? And that goes to that second thing, is sometimes you just have to jump in and figure out things along the way. I remember, my very first job I started back in the early 90s, I worked for a financial services company. And I was working in the learning and development space. And every time we'd put out a program, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be planned out and laid out. And then, about 10 years later, I started working for this software company. and they had a very different view. Software companies, very different. And it was get it mostly right. Again, I'm back in the learning and development space, and I was rolling out this leadership program. And my boss said, just get it mostly right. Get it out. We'll test it, try it, and repeat. And kind of, he said, perfect is the enemy of the good. Perfect is the enemy of the good. And as my English professor used to say, when you're getting ready to start writing something, and I just finished writing a book, so this resonates quite well, is don't get it right, get it written. Don't worry about getting it right early on. Just start writing and start doing something to move you forward. And as I talked to so many of these people about how they got started, they had confidence that they could figure things out. And that's how, my wife and I and our kids, we had the confidence we could figure out what we were going to do when we got into Poland. And it was a common trait I heard from so many people. So, about 2 days after we figured we would do this trip, we figured let's raise, we can raise about $10,000 to $20,000. And that'll allow us to buy medical supplies. It'll allow us to kind of help out with some of the Ukrainians and the refugees. And on day one, we hit $10,000. Day two, we were rapidly approaching $20,000. And my wife looked at me and she said, honey, what are we going to do with all this money? And I thought that's a good problem to have. We'll figure it out. And it became just the basis. I said that over and over is we will figure it out. And we didn't know exactly what the trip would look like, but we knew we had kind of this mission involved and we knew what our goals were. And for that first week, for the next 2 weeks, we talked to anyone that knew anything about this situation. And when you put an idea out in the universe, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who'll connect you up. And this goes to one of the things that Ron talked about. It's all about relationships. That's right. And within one or two connections, somebody, a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, Bryan, I know the CEO. I went to grad school with the CEO of this pharmaceutical dealership or dealer in Frankfurt. Do you want to talk to him? And like 12 hours later, we were on the phone with this guy, and I told him, I said, what we want to do is we have about $10,000 we'd like to put in, buy some medical supplies and somehow get it into Kiev, into the middle of Ukraine. And he said, I'm on board, and let's figure this out. And then, we had another friend that connected us up to somebody who was the vice mayor of this town in Poland, and they had 2,700 refugees. And so we started talking to her. And then, this other relationship, they connected us up to somebody who knew a medic at the border of Poland and Ukraine. He was going in and out of Kiev, and he was working with the hospitals. It's like, okay, now we know somebody who can prioritize the medical needs. We have a pharmaceutical distributor. And so we started to kind of build these relationships and started putting pieces of the puzzle together, but we didn't know exactly. And we're now flying there to Berlin to start this. And we don't know exactly what it's looked like, but we know we can figure it out. And if you would have asked me a couple of months ago, so we did this in April, and if you would have asked me a couple of months ago if I knew how to get about $30,000 of prescription drugs across 3 countries into a war zone, I would have said, I haven't a clue. But it's that ability to just you go into that uncomfortable zone, knowing that you can figure it out along the way, and you will. And we're now just getting ready to put some more. We're working with those same people to get some more prescription drugs into Odessa. Now, everybody on this panel, everybody on the call is accomplished in some way and has been successful in some way along their lives and can likely figure things out. And, I'm often, EA talked about how I ran 8 marathons back to back kind of around Lake Tahoe. And I'm often asked, how do you get started to run a marathon? And I said, the first thing you got to do is just sign up. Just sign up. That gets some level of commitment. And that's whatever. I was working with somebody who wanted to start their own business. And I said, what's one thing you can do to just start moving forward? And it's going to be uncomfortable to sign up for that marathon, but you sign up and then you figure out things along the way. And then I asked, kind of one thing to ask, and I can, throw it out to the panel is, ask yourself, are you swimming in the shallow end of the pool? Or are you swimming in the deep end of the pool? And sometimes it's good to swim in the shallow end, but every once in a while, head out to the deep end of the pool, because it can be pretty rewarding. So I pose to you guys, where do you prefer to swim, the shallow end or the deep end, and what do you find?
Well, when you were talking about, what adventures are you're going to go on, I was thinking, in the movies, they'll have this thing like somebody will jump off a cliff and they're like, you don't have a parachute. I'll build a plane on the way down, or
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But also we have to be smart before we take that leap, because we should always have the end result in mind as well, right? So
You should. Yeah, there is a bit of risk analysis that you look toward. Yeah.
absolutely.
You know,
Doesn't
I'll,
matter. I swim in deep or shallow as long as I'm swimming, right?
As long as you're swimming and there's no sharks. Ron, you were going to say something.
I think Brian, for me, I I will go in the deep end as long as I know the shallow end is still there for me, if that makes sense. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think back so many years ago, doing I was doing my first advanced sales training classes when I was doing that kind of work, and I didn't like the probing module that we had, and I changed it on my own, and I had presented it to a couple of classes that went well. My boss and my boss's boss are observing me now. They have flown in from California to Manhattan, and I am standing at the flip chart getting ready to do the probing module, and I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? Do I do what's in the leader's guide, or do I do my own thing? And I was like, I'm doing my own thing. So I did, and I'll never forget. Tony Codiani, who's gone now, came up to me, and certainly am not going to use the language he used with me in public here. He goes, what was that? What was that? Ron, that was the greatest thing I ever saw. And I was proud of that. And equally as important, though, I am going to go back to something that EA talked about, because he and my boss Barbara both said, Ron, that was wonderful. It was really, really solid, except you need to check with us before you make major changes like that.
Mm.
You need to the expectation is you need to check with us. And that was fair. That was fair. So
Yeah.
Very good. And if I can grab on that part of which end of the pool would you be in, as a part of an introduction to the amazing Rafael. Here's what Rafael would do. And I've known the man now, it's been a year. It's been over a year. I was looking back through the Excel spreadsheets, the different interviews I did. I thought, look at that. It's been over a year already. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to talk about it flying by, right? How excellent. And Rafael is one of the guys that not only enjoys being in the deep end, but he's not afraid to go down by the drain, because he learned something. When everyone else sees him down there, they're saying, look, Rafael's drowning. He's drowning. He's down by the drain. But Rafael learned, when you get down by the drain, the deepest part, that's when you get to kick off, and you're going to come flying out of the top of that water, where the people that just sort of float in the shallow end never get that chance. And so Rafael is the man that comes flying out of that water, because he'll go down to the drain and he will kick off when he's at the bottom and propel himself out the top of that water. And he'll plan. He's a planner. That's what he loves to do. I mean, how would you feel if you got on an airplane and all of a sudden the pilot said, thank you for flying with us, ladies and gentlemen. We're on Scary Airlines, and we hope you enjoy your flight today. And I want to let you know, we haven't decided where we're going. And but we will, once we're in the air, we're going to decide. And, we may go to the right, we may go to the left. And we haven't checked to see how much fuel we have. We're expecting there probably is some left over from the last flight. But we expect there'll be enough fuel to at least get us off the ground. So we should be good. I mean, by the time he was through talking, I'm sure there would be a mob headed for the emergency escapes of the plane, right? And there would be a lot of people quickly deciding what's the difference between a parachute and a backpack right on the spot, trying to get, but Rafael is a planner, and he can teach people. First, he'll ask you, okay, well, where do you want to go? And doesn't every pilot say, this is our destination? How could you ever have a flight plan without a destination? The answer is you could not. And Raphael helps people do just that. He helps people take their plan. Okay, where's the destination you want to go? And then what's the flight plan we have to take? And when you have obstacles and you have to detour, you see, sometimes those are called alternate airports. How do you do that? You need to have enough, you need to have 45 minutes in fuel after you've landed at an alternate airport. If all of a sudden the weather goes really bad, down past minimums at your destination airport. That's a part of the plan. You do that in advance. And then you ultimately will arrive at your destination even when that happens. He's become a personal friend. He's always a joy. We are able to invest time together every single week, and I'm always impressed with his caring for other people and caring for his students in the studio and how he wants to help them, and other people that have asked him, how did you make it? How did you build such a huge studio when most studios are maybe 1,000 square feet and your studio is 10,000 square feet? How did you do that? How did you build that? And he's very unique in that way. And he'll always come back and say, well, I decided what I wanted and I put together a plan. So he's a man that's done it. Again, when you get a mentor, what do you want? Someone that's done it, not an educated idiot, right? So Raphael, he's a man that's done it. Great personal friend, a true giver with a true heart. Raphael, please share with our viewers how to develop a plan for success while avoiding easy and common interruptions.
Yeah, what's the address I have to send the check to?
You would send that to.
Let me paint the picture for you guys, right? Imagine you're working on a task, something you have to get done, and you get a phone call. I call that an interruption. It takes you away from your task, say 10 minutes. That 10 minutes killed your momentum. It may take you 30 minutes or longer to get back to it. What do you do now? How do you get back into it? So here's the thing, right? I'm going to talk about scheduling, right? Your schedule is something you keep, period. Schedule your day, and that way your day will not run you. You will run it. So, to me, scheduling is everything. If you have no schedule, then any and all interruptions will take over. Email, calls, people, right? Set up a specific time to check your email. Turn off notifications on your email, and for that matter, on all, yes, I said all your social media, except for Heroes Rising, obviously. So here's the thing that you do not turn off. Do not turn off your notifications on your digital calendar, because for me, I have right here, it's my calendar. I have to write it. And then I go to my Google Calendar, and there's so many calendars you can use. And then I put it in there because I get a chime 10 minutes before something comes up. I have to do things. But here's the thing. This way you won't miss any of your important phone calls, meetings, sales events, even your downtime. You should schedule your downtime, because sometimes we get so busy, so into what we're doing, that we forget that, hey, you know what? I need to take a little bit of time to what? Eat. Your nutrition is a huge part. So maybe you're going to have a snack. Set an alarm. You're going to forget. You're doing something. You're on your computer. You're doing something with your hands. You're going somewhere. Your meals are an important, integral part of your optimal performance day in, day out. Here's the thing. You don't have to answer every phone call that comes in. And nowadays with telemarketers, I bet you they do the same for you, right? They call, you answer, and there's silence. I'm like, and when that started happening, I was like, what is going on? They don't even talk. At least a little breathing, nothing. And then they just hang up. And then I get 500 of those calls. And I'm like, wow. In the old days, they used to at least say something. And I still get is your insurance running out? Do you get that too? So here's the thing. If you have someone who's fielding your calls, let them know which calls are important, which ones are you willing to take, and which ones they should take a message, and which ones they should actually make believe they're taking a message and just put aside, because you know you're never going to call those back, and you don't want to be wasting your time thinking, do I have to call them back? So if someone, and even if it's family, if they know that you are at work or something of that nature, let them text you, right? Because you can always respond to a text, but you don't have to respond to a text right away either, right? Focus on one thing at a time, and I promise you, you will be more successful that way. Every day, I wake up thinking, how is my day going to end? I don't just go out there and do things. I start with the end in mind. The end of today. What am I doing later today? I have a couple of other events I have to handle today. What is my last thing I will do? Do I spend quality time with my family? If you set up your day accordingly, you will succeed time in and time out. There are many distractions, emergencies that will come up, and you will have to handle them. But what do? How do you handle them, and how do you get back? Or maybe you can't. Maybe a whole day is done because it's a family emergency and you have to take care of that. Then do that. But at one point, you have to come back. So for me, I have two things that everybody, and I know everybody in the world is saying, oh, I have to have a morning routine. You have to have an evening routine. I have an extra routine. It's a midday routine. I do my checkup, always do my checkup. How is it going? Am I on track? Is everything coming through? So present yourself with the outside possibilities that things will not always go the way you want them to. Here's the thing. Every day, plan on your success. I want to share with you guys, for example, a couple of things that will make a difference for you, right? So think about, these are the things that will keep you on track for your success. Everything that we do every single day is going to tell you how successful you're going to be. So I think we lost Ron, and it could be a bad connection, and Ron is back. Hopefully he'll join us back. He might have a bad connection, but Ron, I know you're in here with us, right? So here's the thing, right? Manage. What do you want to manage? Your schedule. Manage your schedule. Every day, manage your schedule. Otherwise, other people will do that for you. And where are you going to be? No. And then the other thing is acquisition, relationships. Listen, these guys right here, these superpowers would not be here today if I didn't do my, let's do it, acquisition. If I didn't ask, if I didn't build that relationship with them, right? And guys, answer me this. Did I do follow-up with you?
Oh, multiple times. Yeah,
Not
you
one.
were. Yeah, no, you did multiple. Yeah, you were great at that.
Oh, why?
You would check in. I mean, when you and I talked yesterday, and then you had asked if I could participate in this, and then you sent me a note and you said, "Here's a link. Anything you need." Just checking in. So yeah, no, and you said it like let's get together 10 minutes beforehand. So I was impressed with that.
Because for me, I wanted this to be an effective presentation. So we have to plan everything, set everything up, right? And then here's the other thing, right? Did I negotiate with you? Did I tell you how awesome this event would be? No. Negotiation and in relationships, listen, we negotiate every day, right? Hey, honey, what do you want for dinner? Oh, I don't know. I want this, or you want that, or that. Where do you want to go to the movies? What movie do you want to watch? Or in business, hey, can I get you assistance in this? Or you want to negotiate on a new deal? To me, everything is negotiations. So, Ron, I keep seeing you there, but you're not showing up. So I don't know, maybe if your camera's off, but if not, Ron. And here's the thing, right? I want to give Ron so much credit for being here with us. When we think about everything that we are doing every single day, it's what Ron talked about. It's what EA talked about. It's what Bryan talked about. It's communication, right? So here is Ron's contact. I need you guys to reach out to Ron and let him know, even though he went dark, he's still with us. He's still with us. Ron and I think you can hear us. I'm not sure. But here's the whole thing, right? We have an amazing event coming up, but we're taking a little summertime off, right? EA and I, we're going to go to Bermuda, Bahamas, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico. I'm kidding. But maybe, you know why I say we could? Because he's a pilot. He's a pilot. And I know that if I need a ride, he'll pick me up. So thank you, EA, for being such an amazing person. Guys, I want to tell you, we do have someone coming up in August, and it's Brendan, and he is the founder of Master Talk. I'm going to tell you another great opportunity for all of us to learn public speaking. EA, would you, and I know you don't mind, would you please tell us about a little bit about our next event? Just a little bit.
Well, it's going to be August 12th, which is a Friday. And of course, it'll be an awesome lunch and learn. One of the reasons I think Rafael enjoys doing lunch and learns, because it's a great way to, where a lot of times, someone will take that hour and just sort of do something that may not be an excellent self-improvement. And Rafael likes to help people improve and better their best every chance they can. So it'll be a lunch and learn at 12 o'clock Eastern, August 12th. And I think it's going to be quite exciting. And to learn, communication is critical, because when we can up our public speaking game, being able to communicate with people and communicate them effectively, I think that's it's really, really critical. And you can know the information, but if you're not able to get it across, and quick story about that, just sort of in conclusion, right to that point. There was a very well-known actor named Charles Lawton, who had this beautiful melodious voice, just a spectacular, spectacular actor. And he was in a church, and Charles Lawton got up and read some scriptures from the Bible, and everyone clapped when he was all done, and it was just spectacular. This is Charles Lawton, amazing, melodious, the kind of voice, it doesn't even matter what he's saying. You just wanted to listen to the tone quality and his enunciation and, a cadence of his voice. And then after he was done, an older man got up, and he stood in front of the church, and he also read some verses. And everyone in the church stood and gave him a standing ovation. Later on, they asked Charles, you're a famous actor. How did you feel when you got an applause, and yet this old man got a standing ovation? He said, well, it's quite simple. I knew the words, and I knew them well. The old man, he knows the author. Mm-hmm. So how you say it, and certainly one of the worst tragedies in life, is not death, but what dies inside of us while we are alive. Thank you, everyone, for being with Heroes Rising.
Yeah. Everybody, keep moving, right? Thank you, gentlemen. Have an amazing, and as my co-host will always say, go for it.
Don't just have a good day. Have your best day ever.